Welcome to the Sleep Sense Show. As always, brought to you by the Sleep Sense program, where podcast listeners can get a free customized sleep plan by going to www.sleepsense.net/listen.
Hi, I'm Dana. Welcome to the show. You know, my first son is what I lovingly refer to him as a pacifier junkie. He loved that passy. And at the time, I really didn't know any better. And the pacifier helped keep him calm. If I needed to have a shower, it helped keep him calm while I was making dinner. It helped him fall asleep. And I thought, hey, if it works, why change it? And I agree. I think there's lots of good things that pacifiers do, but there are some cons as well. So today I'm going to give you a bit of an overview about how it can be helpful, because I do believe it's a useful tool, how it can become a problem, especially in the world of sleep, and then give you a few tips for ditching it altogether if you've got a toddler who needs to say bye-bye to the binky. All right, so thinking back in the day when my son was a brand new baby, I did find that they love to suck. I mean, that's just natural. We know that newborn babies have a very strong suck need, and I was having a lot of problems nursing, and so it bought me a little bit of time, right? It just helped keep him calm so I could go have a shower or get dinner started or throw in a load of laundry or just to be quiet in the car while I drove somewhere. So it absolutely helped in those situations. And I think when we're starting off with newborn babies, absolutely use it, right? It does help. It gives mom a bit of a break if your baby's suck need is so high that, the baby wants to be glued to the mom's breast 24/7. Now, there are some cautions around it as far as nursing goes. Some recommendations are that you wait until you feel like nursing is fairly well established before you introduce it. I never found that made much of a difference. However, as you know, I would not call myself a nursing expert at all. So what do I know? But I think it can help you in those situations where you just need a bit of a breather or a break, or your baby's extra fussy and it just helps calm them down, or you miss the window and they're overtired and it just helps them get into the first cycle of sleep. Hey, go for it. The nice thing about newborn babies is that they don't have a lot of bad habits yet. There's nothing we have to break or change when we're dealing with the newborn, so we can use a pacifier with caution, right? And it can be helpful with caution. Now, I have to say that there are SIDS recommendations. The American Academy of Pediatricians put out a report about a year ago, and their recommendation was to use a pacifier for the first 12 months as some sort of SIDS prevention. It was a bit unclear, in my opinion, why a pacifier would prevent SIDS. There was some talk that perhaps it was because a baby wouldn't roll over on their stomach as easily if they had a pacifier in their mouth. Other thoughts were that it kept the tongue forward enough in the mouth that it wouldn't block airways. There was a hypothesis that perhaps it prevented a baby from going into deep stage 3 sleep as often, so perhaps that was somehow helping. And so there was all this talk about using them. And absolutely, I think every parent needs to make that decision for themselves. I cannot tell you. It wouldn't be ethically right for me to tell you to use it or don't use it. That's a decision you need to make. I am, though, going to tell you a few setbacks to getting your baby addicted to a pacifier for sleep, which my son was one. So what happens when we fall asleep? It's a journey, right? You don't just lie down and the next second you're asleep. It's a process. So you get into your bed and you start your journey into sleep. And for most people, it takes anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes to make this journey, and that would be considered perfectly normal. So what happens to babies who get sort of attached or hooked on external things is that they start to think, this is how I do this, right? I get a pacifier in my mouth, I suck on it delightfully for the 5 minutes or 10 minutes it takes to start to fall asleep, and that's what I do. It becomes an association. This can happen with the breast. It can happen with a bottle. It's anything that a baby begins to believe they need in order for sleep to come. Now, the downside to this is that when they have a naturally occurring wake up in the night, which is completely normal, everyone does this, their awareness may come to the point where they realize, I don't have this pacifier in my mouth anymore. Now I'm fully awake. Right? Usually, especially with children, the little naturally occurring wake-ups that they have are so brief. They're literally just a blip where they may flicker the eyelids a little bit and go right into another cycle. And that is perfect. That's perfection. That is the one time in our life when sleep is absolute perfection. My problem with the pacifier association, though, is that yes, there will be times where it's just the blip, the beautiful blip, and they go right back into another cycle. But there will be times in the night where they have a full wake up, 100% wake up, because they realize the pacifier is no longer in the mouth. And what do? They cry. They cry for you, or anyone really, to come back in there, find that passy, and get it back into their mouth. And then they suck for 5 minutes or so until they fall asleep again. And yay, right? It's great that they've gone back to sleep relatively easily. But this is going to happen at least once a night, maybe up to 5 times a night. I can remember when things got really tough with my son, it was at least 4 or 5 times a night that I was going in there just to plant a passy back in his mouth. And that, led to the discovery of, hey, maybe I need to change something here so that he falls asleep without this thing. And there you go. The birth of sleep sense had begun. But at the time, I didn't know any better. So that's the downside, right? Every time I fall asleep, I need this thing in my mouth. It is the reason why, in a lot of cases, naps are too short. Again, if a baby puts a passy in or gets a passy when they're put down for the nap, 5 minutes later they fall asleep. When they enter into stage 3 of their sleep cycle, and stage 3 is that really deep sleep that we all go into, it's an important part of our cycle. It's a very important part. It is the part of our cycle we need in order to feel refreshed, right? Rejuvenated in the morning. There's a lot of cell repair going on in stage 3, a lot of immune system repair. It's a pretty important piece of our sleep cycle. So what happens when we go into stage 3, there's no way any of us could keep anything in our mouth if we're going into stage 3, because, all of our muscles relax to a degree in which you can't physically hold onto something in your mouth. So it's going to fall out. And that is like the number one complaint about the pacifier is that, hey, this sucker won't stay in. It comes out. And that's when they come to the end of that cycle, they're going to realize that it's no longer there. So that's the tricky part. I can remember thinking, and I'm not proud of this thought, but it did occur to me, the pacifiers that my son had 2 little holes on either side of the pacifier. And the thought crossed my mind, hey, what if I take string and tie this passy around his head? I mean, the crazy thoughts you think of when you're desperate for sleep. But I went there. I did. I never did it, but the thought did cross my mind because it wouldn't stay in. And that was the really frustrating part about it. So if you use it, I would recommend that you use it cautiously. Here's a couple of places in regards to sleep that it can be helpful. If you've missed the window, baby is now overtired, she's just kind of reached that frantic stage, or she's really wound up and she's very, very sleep deprived, it can be helpful there. And now this is just newborn babies we're talking about in that newborn phase. So go ahead and use it. It can also be really great to help lengthen too short of a nap. So if she goes down great and then 45 minutes later she's up again, if you go in there quickly and offer the passy and maybe just lightly hold it in with your finger for a few minutes to get her into another cycle, that can work well. Okay, so that's worth trying. I would recommend it not be used at bedtime simply because I want a baby to figure out at least the foundations for getting to sleep prop-free, right? Or maybe you just try it for the first nap of the day, prop-free, so that they are at least figuring out the pieces of, hey, how do I do this without that thing in my mouth? And that's an important key to teaching a baby to sleep well all of the time. All right, so what happens though if your baby did become addicted or prop dependent on this pacifier? This is, again, up to you. Let me be clear about this. This is completely up to you. It's a you decision that you're making here. But if you've got a child who's waking up multiple times a night, falling asleep with a passy in his mouth, waking up repetitively through the night for simply the passy retrieval, then you've got a situation on your hands that is only going to be fixed by the removal of the pacifier. Okay, so maybe you're not ready yet. Maybe you want to wait to that magic 12-month mark. But that is the reason why your baby's not sleeping well or through the night. It is because of the pacifier. Now, I've had a lot of people say to me, well, she goes to sleep with the pacifier, but she doesn't bother me in the night. She must find it herself. Some people throw in like 6 pacifiers into the crib with the child in the hopes that, somewhere in her rummaging around, she's going to find it and get it back into her mouth. And there are kids that do that. But here's the problem with it. Remember we were talking earlier about what it should just be a little blip. It is, childhood is the one time in our life where we sleep perfectly. It all goes downhill from there. So my wish is that if that's the one time when sleep is perfect, let's make sure that it is, right? Let's not cause children to have full wake-ups in the night for any reason at all. So if she has a full wake up in the night, now she's got to feel around for her passy, find it, get it back into her mouth. That's fragmenting her night. There's no doubt about it. So now you know how you feel on those nights where you've had a couple of wake ups in the middle of the night. That's how she's going to be feeling too. So I like to see kids be prop free, certainly by the age of 1, so that they're sleeping consolidatedly through the night with no upset, no wake up, no reason, right, to call or need anything. They just do it beautifully and on their own. So even if it's not bugging you, right, I would still say, let's get rid of it. Let's teach this child how to sleep well and on her own and independently and prop-free. It's a beautiful, glorious thing. Now here's a nice side benefit to getting your child off of the pacifier for sleep. It loses its appeal in other areas too. It's the sleep thing that causes this deep attachment, right? I mean, think about sleep. I mean, you're deeply attached to your habits around sleep. And so if you break that connection, you might find that she's not really that interested in it that much during the day either. And that's great, right? Now you're one step closer to being free from them completely. If you wanted to give it to her in the grocery store, if she's whining, or you just need to have her be quiet for a few minutes while you're on the telephone, it's fine, right? You can go ahead and do that if it's something you feel is a helpful piece of your day. But as long as it's not being used for sleep, then you're one step closer to being rid of it altogether. Now the recommendations are, and I'm going to say 1, certainly by 1, but definitely by 2. And this isn't just, because I don't think toddlers should be walking around with passies in their mouths, which I don't. But this is from a dentist's perspective, that around the second birthday is when everything in the teeth and the jaw starts to formulate, become more solidified. And if there's a passy always in the mouth, it may start to cause some teeth damage or slanting or some sort of problem that you're going to have to pay thousands of dollars later to fix. So definitely by 2, start steering away from it. By 4, By 4, it absolutely should be gone, right? And this is, again, just from a dental perspective. When they start losing baby teeth and getting permanent teeth, you definitely want that passy to be gone. But there's a couple of other reasons why I think the pacifier should be gone earlier rather than later. Absolutely. One is that it's important for children to learn how to self-regulate, right? We all, as human beings, have to learn how to handle a whole range of emotions. And if I start to think that the only way I can soothe or calm myself is if something is in my mouth and I'm sucking on it, it worries me that that may linger. Right? We just have to look around at all the people who smoke and eat for comfort, and that sort of oral fixation that a lot of people have. It could be because they were slow to, or it was interfered with as they sort of figure out, how do I soothe myself? How do I handle, emotions that don't feel good, frustration or anger or sadness? How do I cope with those things? So I think that's a good reason to get rid of both bottles and passies, certainly by the 2nd birthday, so that if there's truth to that, which I believe there is, that can be something that they're working on internally. So how do you get rid of this thing? If you feel like, yeah, let's do this thing, it's time, let's get rid of these passies. If we're talking about an older child here, the 2 and up range, or even the 18-month and up range, even the 12-month and up range, there's no way to wean off of this thing. This is a habit. This is a deeply connected piece of their sleep strategy. There's no way to give it and then not give it, or give it until she's just falling asleep and then take it away. None of that is going to work. And I think it's unfair. I mean, if you're trying to break a habit, but you sometimes give into that habit, you're never going to break this habit, right? We know that about habits. So it's cold turkey. They're gone. Bye-bye. Now, if you want to get creative about it, and I think there's a lot of fun that you can have with this. One of my favorite ideas is to gather up all of the passies and replace the passies with a gift. So some people call it the passy fairy. If you want to go that route, you can. Or you could just simply say, we've taken all your pacifiers, and in exchange, we're giving you this new gift. Could be a new toy. I saw someone recently gave their child a bike, something worthwhile, right? That, hey, this is really cool. Look at, my passies are gone, but I got this great toy instead. That can be helpful. Some people box them up and send them to a new baby that the child might know that these are now Susie's babies. The only passies. The only downside with that is that if she decides in 5 days that she's really angry about these passies being gone, she might be mad at Susie, the baby, for taking them all. So think that one through before you do it. Some people just put them in the recycling bin and tell their child that they'll go off and be made into tires or something new. There's really no easy way to do this. Your child's never going to go, okay, this is fabulous. Let's get rid of my favorite habit. I'm ready, right? That's not realistic. And I think, honestly, I feel like that's what people are waiting for when you see those 4 or 5-year-olds walking through the mall with a pacifier in their mouth. I think that the parents are really doing that. They're waiting for some magical day where the child's going to hand it over and be fine. And I'm here to tell you, I don't believe that day will arrive, or it will be when they start school, perhaps. And why wait that long? So it's just cold turkey. They are gone. Toss them out. I think you should get rid of them from the house. And the only reason I think you should do that is so that you don't fall back on it, right? If you know they're in the closet and she's really crying at bedtime tonight and it's been 20 minutes and you don't think it's ever going to end, you're going to be tempted to go to that closet and get it, right? Don't tell me you're not. So throw them away so there's no temptation there. And here's the last piece of this. There will be protest. There will be. Think about any habit you've tried to change. Maybe you're not stomping your feet and screaming the house down, but that's, again, because you're an adult and you've learned how to handle those kinds of emotions. But even habits we change that we know are for our greater good are still very, very difficult to change. So there is going to be protest. It'll usually show up at bedtime or naps if the sleep thing is a deep part of it, or, while she's watching TV or somewhere else. But here's the good news. It doesn't last very long. Honest to gosh, people, it's one of the things when I used to work with clients privately and I would tell them we have to ditch the passy, the look of horror on the parent's face was priceless. And it took me 10, 20 minutes to explain to them, it's not going to be as bad as you think. You're more worried about it than she's going to be upset about it. And that is the truth. Most parents are much more heartbroken or worried or scared about taking the pacifier away. They're envisioning this humongous drama, and it's not really. It's a couple of days. I had one friend who was sure that this was going to be the battle to end all battles. It took one night. One night. He cried for his passy one night, and then it was like someone went in there and erased it from his memory. He never mentioned it again. Now, that's a pretty lucky case, and there might be some, repetitive asking for it or looking around for it, and you just say there's no more. They're all gone. They are all gone. And this blows over really quickly. Within, 3 or 4 days, I bet you she's not even mentioning it anymore. All right, so I hope that gives you some good tips today. Thanks so much for listening. Sleep well.
Thanks so much for listening. For more great tips on helping your child sleep through the night, remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show on iTunes or Stitcher, and never miss an episode.